All right, well, welcome everybody to the final Media Monday of the spring semester. And joining us tonight, I it feels like welcoming an old friend who is like not old, but feels like an old friend anyway. Feels like somebody I've known for just forever. And I really appreciate the fact that Raina Wiseman is coming back to join us. For those of you who may not know, Raina is the marketing coordinator at Western Piedmont Community College in Morganton. That's correct?
Yes.
Yes, Morganton, North Carolina. She worked as the East Tennessean executive editor for 2 years, was also the first ever graduate assistant for the East Tennessean / student media. And so I'm just really glad you're here with us, Raina.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. And we'll just kind of have a conversation. If you have questions, you can ask them. Of course, I always have plenty of questions, and you can put them in the chat. Just unmute and ask, just whatever. It's kind of a conversation. But let me just kind of start. Raina, could you kind of tell us about maybe what a day-to-day is like for you, like a typical day? I mean, what is your marketing position at WPCC? I think I got that right.
Yeah.
Just kind of talk about that a little bit.
So I work in marketing, which is media, which means that no day is ever typical. All of you guys know that. I do everything from digital advertising, print advertising, social media, you name it, I do it. This Thursday, I'm booked to take photos. I've done videos. We recently just got done with a really long video series. Thursday is also part of an event, which we've been a part of coming up with. So I kind of just do a little bit of everything. There's nothing like every single day I do this. I come in that day and whatever needs to be done, I get done.
And I know that you at one point worked, I think it was like an APS position or an internship, something with university relations at ETSU. I'm sorry, I can't recall exact, but you can refresh my memory on that. And could you kind of compare that? What's it like, working at a smaller institution, a community college, as opposed to, you think, marketing related to ETSU?
Yeah, when I was with university relations, I did that for a year. It was my APS job. And then the spring, I also added on an internship with them. So a few more responsibilities. And with them, I mostly worked with social media, and I helped with a bunch of different areas, but that was primarily it. But yeah, the difference between a community college and the university level is, I think, kind of like what I was saying. At the college, you have to be a jack of all trades because we have a 2-person marketing team. That's it. We have some people in IT that help us with some different parts of that. Sorry, I think I just knocked the computer a little bit. But at university relations at ETSU, everything was definitely more specialized. So I worked under the person who was doing digital marketing and social media. But thankfully, I didn't just work with that person the whole time I was there. I also worked with people doing press type events and more social events and just everything that's also in the office. So that's really the big difference between what I did at university relations at ETSU and what I do now is I went from seeing more of like a very specialized tasks and people who had more of a area of expertise, and now it's doing everything just because that's kind of how it's set up.
Having a staff of 2 and marketing for an entire, I started to say university, but an entire college, what's that like? How do you deal with, because I'm sure probably at least sometimes you encounter like, oh, I need to ask so-and-so to do this. And like, oh no, there is no so-and-so to ask. I need to do it. So, how do you deal with those sorts of challenges?
Well, I work with my supervisor on the marketing team, and he's been there for a while. So he's definitely like the most valuable resource. But I've also learned that Google is my best friend. as much as I learned at ETSU, there's no way that I could have possibly gained every piece of knowledge that I needed. For instance, when I was at ETSU, I did some video editing. I knew how to use Premiere. I even got certified in Premiere. I got to my job and I've done countless videos at this point. I couldn't even tell you how many. And Google and YouTube have just been my best friend. I've learned how to do some like really simple motion graphics and all these different pieces of video editing that I had no idea how to do before. So I think that's been really important for me, is just being scrappy and learning how to use resources, whether that be people or the internet. And I think that applies for every single job. There's no way that you could ever go into something completely prepared. So just knowing how to find your resources and be able to make it work.
All right, well, I managed to avoid it for, it looks like 8 minutes into this conversation, but I've not had a Media Monday yet where we didn't at least partially, sometimes the majority or sometimes all of it, talk about COVID-19. So first of all, how are things in your area related to COVID-19 currently? I know locally cases are starting to go up some, which I mean, I think was pretty much expected. I mean, let's hope that it doesn't get anywhere near like fall and winter levels. But anyway, how are things around in your area?
It is what it is. It's like all of the world. We have growing numbers of people getting vaccinated. We've had steady numbers of people wearing masks and taking all the necessary precautions. And then, like every other area, you have those who aren't doing it, and it's made it more challenging. But yeah, shout out to being in education and having a job in education, because I was able to get vaccinated fairly soon. I'm apparently an essential worker, so I got to be a part of that group. So that's been good. So personally, coronavirus is getting better. I was talking to Dom before we got on this meeting that I'm like telling myself now at this point that we've got to chill out a little bit, because as many of you know, I'm very particular about everything. So I'm telling myself that I don't have to use hand sanitizer every 5 seconds.
Yeah, I'll try to get to that point eventually. Maybe I'm every 7 seconds now with hand sanitizer.
Yeah, every minute.
Talk a little bit about, and I know that COVID had already, we were pretty much in the thick of it when you got your position, but what has the response been like at your college? And also kind of talk about how the restrictions have been and continue to be in the state of North Carolina, because I always think that's interesting to compare that to a border state.
Yeah, I don't feel like I can speak too much on it, because I'm definitely not an expert in how the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services has handled everything. But at least on the college level, we've done pretty good. We've had wellness screening checkpoints, because it's not as big as a university. And so that means that anyone who has been on campus for classes goes through that, gets their temperature checked, and answers a few questions before they come on. So that's definitely kept our numbers low. We really haven't had that many cases on campus. And that's been really great. But yeah, as far as like my job particularly, when I first started back in July, the first 2 months at least were just like coronavirus marketing. We created like these huge 7-foot signs that we put around campus within my first month. We had a virtual graduation that we put on 1 month into me being there. It was just like a really weird time to start a job in the middle of a pandemic, because everything that really started at that point was coronavirus. How do we handle it? And also at that point, the college was basically opening back up. I think they'd only been reopened for a couple of weeks as far as having people on campus. So yeah, it was a super tumultuous time to be there, but it was a really good opportunity to get my feet wet.
Have there been many, excuse me, on ground courses, or has everything been online or close to everything online? I mean, how's it been at your college?
It's been a mix. The college did a mix of in-person, online, and hybrid classes, so seated and online. There's a lot of programs that you really couldn't do just online. There's a bunch of different medical programs in particular that you just simply could not do if you had them all online. So again, it's been a mix. As many classes as possible were put into online forms, and then as many as possible were put into hybrid, and then just those classes that absolutely had to be there were in person. But then this semester, there were definitely more classes online. I see students a lot more, so that's been exciting. And then we're looking towards summer and fall semester, and those are definitely going to be more in person. So we're reaching a good point.
Yeah, and I was going to ask that, and you answered it already. But ETSU is the same way. Looking toward. I don't know. Sometimes I hesitate to use the word normal because I don't know if any of us know what normal is going to look like once it is quote unquote normal. But ETSU is headed in that direction too. I mean, everybody back on ground. In the fall. Big events are back, having crowds. I'm sure we'll still be doing, social distancing and mask wearing and those sorts of things. But all right, well, kind of staying a little bit on the COVID track, and I wanted to ask you about this because I think this is kind of fascinating and at the same time impressive. You entered the job market at a not so easy time to do so, and you successfully navigated it. You landed a job in your profession in the midst of a worldwide pandemic that was really kind of at full force when you graduated. And so, what was your approach, and what are some of the keys? How did you make it happen?
So I wrote some notes about this because I wanted to have some numbers, but I also just wanted to show you all what they're written on. Because I'm a very prepared adult.
So you are so prepared.
Yes, I was so prepared that these are on Christmas notes. No, so I actually started applying for jobs in January when I knew that I was going to graduate in May. And that was basically just because I knew of a few things opening up and I wanted to go ahead and just putting feelers out there. But before I got on this call, I did find this spreadsheet that I made starting in January. And in total, I applied to over 65 places. So a successful job search is an interesting way to say that. It sure didn't feel successful when I'd been applying since January, and then a pandemic hit, and then I didn't get a job until June. It was very sad through many of those months. Of those 65 places that I applied to, I had 2 in-person interviews, one for the job that I got, and then one at the very beginning of March. It was probably the last thing I did not wearing a mask. And then I had a couple of phone interviews throughout that. And then the worst thing because of the pandemic was that most jobs I didn't even get a no. I got a sorry, at this time, we're not hiring due to the coronavirus outbreak. And that was my job search. It was very, very sad. But that said, going through all of that definitely made me better at interviewing because I got some more experience. And I also learned to use the coronavirus to my benefit. When I was applying, I was writing things like, I've been working at the East Tennessean, I've been doing crisis communications, I was recently in a crisis communication class. I know how to help your company, your school, whatever I was applying to. I know how to help you communicate to people during this time. I've been doing it. I can continue to do it. And I just think that's a good point. There's always going to be something. So if you can twist it and make it work for yourself.
Wow, 60 plus, and before you got the job, 2 questions. How did you stay motivated, and how did you keep from saying, okay, I don't know, maybe I need to
Oh, I think you froze. Or maybe it's on my end. Trish is silent, but I think that you've frozen.
Yeah, I was saying you're not frozen to me, but I was on mute.
Okay. Well, it looks like Dawn's gonna be frozen for a minute, but I think he was talking about how did I keep up my spirits?
Yeah, I think I'm back. Sorry.
Yeah, there you are. I don't know how I kept up my spirits. I think for me, and I say I don't know how I kept up my spirits, not because of the job front, because of just dealing with being in a pandemic as a human was very tough through that point. And also trying to finish up school was very hard, as all of you know. But I think what helped me as far as looking for jobs is that I'm the kind of person who I like to work. I don't like to be idle. So I knew that I wanted to find something, and I wanted to have something to take my mind off of all of the turmoil that is the coronavirus pandemic. So that really motivated me. The reason I started the job hunt in January was because I talked to Dr. Melanie Richards in media and communication, and I said, when do I need to start this? And she said, like, now, if you're really serious and you want to make sure that you're finding something in time for graduation. That was pre-coronavirus world. But she said, if you want to find something in time for graduation, you need to start now. And obviously those plans got turned upside down a little bit, but I do think it helped me because I was already in the pattern of trying to like search job boards, look in different areas for what I wanted. So I knew even before the pandemic started kind of how to go about the job hunt. I had my LinkedIn set up and my portfolio was ready to go. My resume was updated. So I think just being prepared put me in a better position when the world turned upside down. I feel like I'm quoting Hamilton, but when the world turned upside down and it didn't completely just overwhelm me. It wasn't like a tsunami came over me. I did at least have some of my ducks in a row.
How did you find the WPCC position to apply for?
My mom sent me that. That's kind of another thing too. Have other people looking for jobs for you. I have some friends and we were sending them back and forth. If we saw something that we liked, we'd say, hey, this might be something that you're interested in. And my mom was helping me with that too. And she knew that I kind of wanted to stay somewhat local to the area. I wasn't ready to move anywhere really far away. And she sent me that because she knew that I had an interest in working in education. So she sent that and I applied and here we are.
All right, I've done a lot of asking questions. Let me pause and see if we have some questions from those on the meeting. And by the way, Raina, there are 16 people on here, and that is tied a record for a Media Monday audience. So
yeah.
I would also just like to point out that Jarrett is here and he doesn't usually attend these, so.
Hello, Raina. I actually have a question, if that is all right.
Sure is. Take it away, Jarrett.
All right, awesome. I know I joined a little late, and I don't know if this topic was already discussed, but we hear during our undergrad that networking is vital and it's very important. How has that affected you in your ability to find this job and looking towards other opportunities?
Yeah, so with this job, I don't know that networking necessarily applied. I didn't actually know anyone at the college. I didn't know anyone even in the area to ask to help me. With that job, it really was just applying and luck and skill. But when I was on the job search and I was looking at some other places, I thought, and I wrote it down, of this really strange little thing that I did over the summer when I was looking for jobs. I was actually applying for another college that was closer to home. And when I'd been an intern in like the summer of 2017, I think, I had worked at a newspaper and I'd covered an event. And at that event, I met someone who worked at the local Chamber of Commerce. And then this past summer, when I was applying for jobs, I wanted someone to recommend me for it. And I thought, oh, I know this one person who I met one time, but we had a really good rapport. So I asked that person to just give me a recommendation, and they did. I think the job was closed because they weren't hiring amid the pandemic, but it was good. I think had they been hiring still at that point, I think it would have helped. So yeah, networking is extremely important. And thank you, Jared.
Thank you, Raina.
Wait, okay, we have one more person coming in. So does that mean that I've broken the record?
I believe you have, yes.
Thank you all for being here. I so
Woo,
love
woo!
But you know, Raina, all that means is that will get you invited back. So
Cool. No, this is very exciting for me to see all of your faces because I rarely see people outside of work.
all right, other questions for Raina?
What are some good tips for like phone interviews? Because I've been job searching. I got one for this summer, but that was in person, and I've done that before. But what are some tips that you have for phone interviews?
Oh my gosh. So I think the best thing to come out of having to do interviews on Zoom and on the phone is that you can have your notes right there. And especially if it's a phone interview that doesn't have a video aspect, have your notes and be ready and be looking through them. Have notes about yourself, have notes about the company, be prepared. You can't necessarily do that in a face-to-face interview, but even in Zoom, you can have your little notebook right there. Have little just like quick little bullet points that you can go through. And I mean, I'm doing it right now. I've got all my little Santa Claus notes that have different things on them. Just prepare yourself. There's nothing that says you can't be there and have everything at your disposal.
And you can do that in a face-to-face interview, but I'm not sure I would recommend it.
Definitely not in my style either.
All right, thanks, Abigail. Other questions? I know there are more. Go ahead, Kate. I know you have a question.
I won't lie, as soon as I pressed unmute, my mind went blank and I was like, I already forgot what I was gonna ask. So then I remuted myself. But what I was gonna ask was what aspects of working at ET have translated into the job you're working at now?
At the Eastern CN? Oh my gosh, everything. If I hadn't worked at the Eastern CN, I'm not just saying this because you're all here and most of you have some kind of connection with the Eastern CN. I'm saying it genuinely, and I'll back that up with fact here in a second. If I hadn't had my experience at the Eastern CN, I don't know how I would have landed this job. I would have had to have something else that was in the place of that was equally incredible. My current boss right now actually told me that the reason I got my job was because I had more experience than anyone else. Everything with I mean, of course, the East Tennessean, but everything else too. But the East Tennessean, oh my gosh, writing, being able to take photos, being able to video, interviewing skills have been incredibly important. Like I said, we've been doing a video series. I mean, it just immeasurably important. Yeah. I don't even know how to like comb this down to explain how important working at the East Tennessean was. This sounds completely like giddy, but yeah, it's totally true.
What's your favorite aspect of your current job?
I think it's kind of lame. I really like press releases because it is kind of still journalism. I've always liked to write, so I think being able to do that, and I like a lot of parts of my job, but just being able to write and get all of that out and then using those new skills, but in a PR way, that's very satisfying to me. Recently, I wrote a press release about a grant that the college got, and it's just exciting to push those things out. And now being on the opposite side of news, like being able to use those skills to kind of know how and when to send emails that have those press releases in has been helpful. It's also extremely exciting to hit send on those emails, because I think, wow, this is going out to the media.
You're like the WPCC version of Joe Smith.
Yeah, I'm not going to put myself up to that level, but thank you.
I just wanted to ask, let's say that, and this is a hypothetical, and well, maybe not so hypothetical, because I know there are some on this call who are getting ready to graduate. You know, what piece of advice or a couple of pieces of advice, you know, would you offer somebody who's about to enter the, you know, the job market, looking for their first job in their chosen profession? And hopefully, you know, it's still going to be a little bit in the COVID era, but let's hope we're getting closer to being mostly out of that. But anyway, what would you have to say?
Referencing my notes, I think the most important thing would be, again, to start early. If you give yourself enough time to prepare, to work on your LinkedIn, to get your portfolio ready online, to have your resume looking sharp, other little things that go into that preparation, like cleaning up your social media feeds, even if you're not doing anything like wild and crazy. I know that people always use the example of red Solo cups. Probably none of you are doing that anyways, but just little things, like if there's something that maybe could be taken in a weird way by someone who's of a different generation or a different lifestyle, just maybe clean those up or put yourself on private for a while. And then look for inspiration in other places. So if you see someone who's kind of in your field and they're doing a great job with LinkedIn, or they've got a really cool looking resume, reach out to them, ask them how they've done it, ask them for advice on what to do. And then also, I think another really important thing to prepare for searching for jobs and applying is to have your references lined up. Don can tell you, because he's been my reference on several jobs. Go ahead and have people who you pretty much know are going to say yes if you ask for a reference. There's nothing worse than applying for a job and at the last minute before you hit send, you notice that you have to put a reference down. And so you're calling, you're emailing, trying to find someone who can help you. Go ahead and kind of have some people that you know are going to say yes, and they'll be willing to help you. And for different jobs, maybe you want different people, but maybe if you can have a running list that has their name, their position, their contact information, that's a good thing to have.
And kind of along that same line of questioning, let's say you were, you know, in your first or second year of college, and now that you've been through the whole thing and entered the job market, what are some things you're glad you did from the get-go, and what are some behaviors maybe you would have changed? I mean, in other words, what do you need to, I know everybody needs to do well in classes, but beyond that, you know, what's your advice for, you know, again, maybe somebody who's like in their first couple of years and still has a couple of years before they hit the job market?
Yeah, my do and my don't are basically the same thing. Do get involved. Don't wait to get involved. It was really my second year of college before I got involved in anything, and even then not to the extent that I probably should have. So get involved in things. I'm the kind of person who I don't think that, well, I won't commit to anything unless I know that I can commit to it, and if I can commit to it and do it well. So when I was in undergrad, I didn't commit to much. I committed to East Tennessean. I knew that I could do that well. In grad school, I committed to the East Tennessean. I committed to my grades. I committed to Strategic Media Club. Get involved with things, but do them well. Don't spread yourself so thin that you're doing 4 different clubs and you can only attend them once, twice a semester. Do everything that you can. Don't stress yourself out to the point that you're going to break down, because that's not good for you. and find what makes you happy and just do those things really well. Again, I don't think I would have gotten my job had I not been involved with things. Everything that I put on my resume was work and experience type jobs. Nothing really on my resume was school other than saying, hey, I have this degree. All of it was, I worked at this place, I took an internship here. And also, summer jobs are extremely useful. When I worked at a restaurant, I've got that experience on my website, and I was a server, but I also did social media for the restaurant. I created a website for them. And then I also did another summer job, and it was a summer where I kind of took a hit money-wise, and I didn't make that much, but I got really good experience working with the Roan Scholars Leadership Program on campus. So if you just actively seek things and make sure that you can do them well, because you want those people to recommend you and say that you did a good job, and you can have them speak on your behalf later, but just get involved.
And I'm glad you mentioned social media in that answer, because that's what I definitely talk about some. First
Wait.
of all, now this question is probably going. Oh,
You froze for just a second, and I'm
did I freeze again? Right. Am I back? I'm sorry.
Yes.
That Afton Wi-Fi.
That's what it is. Yeah. So it's usually been pretty reliable all year, but you know how it is. Maybe we didn't pay the bill. No, I'm just kidding. But we are about to get married, so. Well, first of all, now this is going to show my age, I'm sure, but I'm going to have to ask you, explain that red Solo cup. What is that? I know what a red Solo cup is, but what's the reference related to cleaning up your social media? You're going to have to explain that one to me.
I'm just like seeing so many smiles, and it's really funny. Just clean
and
up.
Again, I'm probably the only one who you're going to have to explain this for. So
yeah, if you have things on your social media that are perhaps you partying and drinking to excess, maybe clean those up. Did that explain it?
Yeah, I figured that's what it was, but I had to at least ask.
Yeah, not the, who was it, Toby Keith song? If you have that on your profile, I guess that's okay. I'm not a Toby Keith fan myself, but if you are, no shame. Is that Toby Keith?
Yeah. So talk some about social media. How is it integrated into your job that you do now, and how did experience with it help you be prepared for the job that you have now?
Yeah, so I pretty much am the primary person that handles social media at the college. We have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So I'm pretty much posting all the content on that. What I did before with things like the East Tennessean and other experiences I have, just being in the habit of putting things out there and knowing that to build social media communities, you have to be active and be present. I've learned that at the community college level, reaching out into the community is extremely important. You can't just simply post things. I've posted from our page into different Facebook groups. It works. It seems strange, but there's all kinds of different groups locally. Like there's a moms group, and then there's a couple of groups by the Chamber of Commerce. People are super active in those. They're not necessarily active on our feed, but if you put those out there, people are going to see them.
All right. Other questions for Raina?
So I just wanted to ask, do you prefer working life now to student life, or which would you say is better?
I don't feel like I can give an answer to that, because it's like when people ask me what my hobbies are, I don't know, because now my entire non-college working life has been in a pandemic. So if I answer the question of what are my hobbies are going for walks by myself and coming home and fixing dinner. So I don't really know like what the difference would be between college life and a normal work life. So I don't feel like I can gauge that. We'll revisit that maybe in a year.
Okay.
Hopefully work life at least pays a little bit better than student life.
Yeah, it pays quite a lot better than breadcrumbs.
And you probably just answered this, but when I think of it, I always try to ask our guests, what do you do for stress relief? I mean, we've all needed that a lot more in these COVID times. And I mean, it almost sounds, I don't know, I say that is almost on repeat. But again, I feel like we're starting to come to the end of it. But, what are some of your stress relief go-tos?
Yeah, like I said, my name is Raina Wiseman and I like going for long walks. I was really lucky when I moved down here. There's a really nice greenway and I live really close to a track. So when it's been warm and not raining, I can go there. It's been really good just to do after work to get some exercise in and kind of have a moment to breathe without a mask on. That's pretty much the extent of what I do as far as outside of work. When it was winter, I did yoga and I learned to tap dance a little bit. So a lot of you follow me on social media, so you've seen those videos of me tap dancing. I see Kate is clapping. Thank you very much. That means a lot coming from the dancer.
So have you retired from tap dance, or are you still doing that?
Oh no, my tap shoes are right over there.
I was about to say, you better not.
No, I take advantage of when it's sunny and warm outside to go walking because that's definitely like better and I get less distracted doing that and I can go for a longer walk than I can tap dancing in my living room. But when it's raining, I either do that or yoga.
And when I think of it, I always try to ask this because I always think it applies to professional career and educational career, no matter what you are going into as a profession. But what are your keys to self-discipline? I mean, how do you prioritize like tasks at work? I mean, how do you, make sure you get it all done and get it done well?
Well, several of you have seen my system of organization. It's sticky notes everywhere. I've gotten better. I don't necessarily use sticky notes everywhere now. I use the notes app on my computer at work. So the sticky notes have become digital, but I'm just a to-do list person. I put it at the top of the list if that's what I need to get done first and it's the biggest priority, or if it's the task that's going to take the longest. I'm also the kind of person who I have to get like the little things done before I can do the big things. So again, every day is kind of different for me at work. So really it's a matter of coming in first thing in the morning, figuring out what I'm going to do for the day, being prepared for all of that to blow up if something happens, if we get a new request that comes in that needs to be done sooner. But yeah, a lot of my organization and being able to figure out how to get things done is just keeping notes everywhere because I'll also forget.
And your answer there led me to another question. Of course, you don't have to talk specifics, but have you encountered any sort of issues or events that were an extra challenge, that you had to get a message out about? And let's say like not COVID related during the course of the year. And again, we don't have to talk specifics, but have there been instances that, you've kind of been like, how do we pose this? How do we craft this message? Because I always, and just to kind of qualify it, if you are not in journalism on the call or media writing, public relations and journalism have a lot of similarities, but the end goal is a little bit different between the two. And so that kind of was a long-winded question, but have you had any of those sorts of instances?
I would say the only like crisis emergency type scenario that we've had has been weather. We had a day or two of just like really bad weather off of the hurricane because we're on this side of the mountain, so you get that. So that kind of, the college is set up so that other people make that call and basically we just push that message out. So I don't feel like that's really been a part of what I've done at the college. But that does kind of remind me of something that's maybe not completely in the same realm. Something that I was not prepared for personally when I came to my job was how important accessibility is on the college level. If you're not familiar with the Morganton area, the Western Piedmont Community College is situated right beside of the North Carolina School for the Deaf. So a lot of the students at the college come from that school, which means that a bunch of our students either are completely deaf or they're hearing impaired. So a big part of my job is making sure that everything is super accessible. That means captioning videos. We even did one video where it was basically a video montage. And what you don't think about in normal situations is if you make a video montage, people see it. However, if you can't see, if you're visually impaired, you're not going to get anything out of that video. So when we did that, we also had to make a separate version of the video that was descriptive. So it just had someone speaking over it saying, this is a photo of people in a dental hygiene lab and things like that. So I was just completely not prepared to the level of it. Of course, in classes, we went over how to caption videos and how to do basic accessibility. But when it's your job and you know that the college could quite frankly be sued if you're not being accommodating to all students, it's super important to make sure that you are taking all precautions. Even going into social media, each week I post stories on our social media feeds, and I have like the events and things listed out on the stories, but I also do voiceover on those so that people who can't read it can hear it. Hey, Justin, I see your hand raised.
Hey, Raina, it's nice to see you again. Congratulations on everything. I have a quick question in regards to you being in marketing and working communications is kind of your thing. How do you kind of navigate, first of all, what's the importance of like balancing your work with your rest time, and how do you kind of navigate, like, how do you organize like setting certain boundaries, I guess I would say, for like work, in terms of, listen, the weekends I do not answer emails, for example, or can you speak a little bit to the importance of setting those boundaries for yourself and for the people you work with?
Yeah, so anyone that worked with me that first year that I was the executive editor at the East Tennessean, you know that it kind of became too much a part of my life, and I was fielding questions after like midnight if you contacted me. And then that second year I went in and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't have the East Tennessean be every single moment of my life. So I learned that balance then, and learned that I have to like set a certain time in the day that I just have to check out. And not to say that if I get an email from work that's like an absolute emergency, something needs to be fixed on the website or something needs to go on social media. Of course, I've put things on social media at 6 a.m. before for my job. It just happens. But if it's not important, if it doesn't have to be done right then, there's no reason that you should be doing something at 8 p.m. You have to have a life. It's good to actually take time for yourself to chill out. You can't be a good worker if you're overworked. You have to make sure that you're giving yourself some time to relax, become a full human again, and take a breath.
A quick follow-up question. Does your couch sink? Because we've talked about, we have the same exact couch, and I've had mine for about a year and a half. and it like I've been sitting on it too much, or I need to diet or something, but it like I sink into it really quickly.
Oh, sink. I thought you said stink. Like,
No, like you sink into the couch. Yeah.
uh, not that I've noticed.
Okay.
Maybe. When I first got it, it was very like rock solid, and now I think it's just kind of conformed to my lifestyle. So,
Gotcha. Maybe I just slouch because mine's a little too conformed, but anyway.
well, and I'm the kind of person, I'm in the habit of sitting between cushions, so I sink no matter what.
Interesting strategy. Thank you.
Interesting question.
Well, we've mentioned Toby Keith and sinking couches in this Media Monday. So that's
Which, by the way, if the question, I was prepared for the question, does your couch stink? And I do have a response to that, which I just need to get out, even though that's not what we're talking about here. There's this, hold on. And if anyone saw that I'm wearing basketball shorts, please just ignore it. There's this spray that's Tide antibacterial fabric spray. Chef's kiss. It's beautiful. It smells so good. I'd highly recommend. I got this because of the coronavirus, because I'm really crazy and I have to clean everything. It smells so good. 10 out of 10 recommend. That's how my couch doesn't stink.
now maybe Tide will send the Student Media Center about $10 for that plug. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say thank you, Trish, for saying that I have a voice for commercials, not a face, but whatever.
So, Raina, do you obviously we know that you still follow like the East Tennessean student media on social media. If you have had the opportunity to read up on some of our articles from this semester or last semester, was there one that really stood out to you? It's okay if there's not. I just wondered.
No, the one that really stood out to me, and I can't remember who wrote it. I'm not even gonna make a guess, but the one that stood out to me, and this was just because I was on campus, was the Sergeant Pepper Saves Lonely Hearts. I think that was the exact headline. Whoever wrote it, please correct me. I was just on campus and I saw that one and I thought it was so cute, so I of course picked it up.
Well, so glad you liked it, because we spent a hot minute coming up with that headline, and Becky Parsons was the one who suggested that version of it. So,
well, Becky did great because I thought that was fantastic. Also, who wrote that? Was it Kayla?
no, it was Clara Hofer.
Okay,
But yeah,
I don't think I know Clara, so maybe that's why I couldn't think of the name. But yes, that one stood out to me. Also, Jarrett, great job with that front cover.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I don't know what made me think of this. Maybe it was just Trish talking about things that stood out. And I've told this to Kate this year, that at the beginning of every academic year, I always tell the executive editor, you know, there's something big is going to happen. It just does. This year, it's felt like something big has happened almost every day, seemingly, you know, and so, which brought me to my question. What was the, and I think I might know the answer to this, but I wanted to ask you anyway. During your time as exec editor of the East Tennessean for those 2 years, what was number one? I mean, what's the thing that stood out the most to you?
How does one count the ways? We started out with a campus lockdown. We ended with a plague. We had a presidential inauguration, and I don't know. It kind of felt like it never stopped for 2 years. It did intermittently in between there, but there were just big things popping up all over. I think I have to go with the presidential rally at Freedom Hall.
Yeah, and that's what I was hoping you would say. I mean, and I've heard the story. I mean, and I'm always like really enthralled by it. But I know some of it on here have not heard about it. And most of you probably know Donald Trump during the campaign, or actually it wasn't during the presidential campaign, but it was the Senate race when Marsha Blackburn was running against Phil Bredesen. Toward the end of the campaign, Donald Trump made an appearance at Freedom Hall in Johnson City, which was like, and we all knew it. We knew he was coming. We could have broke it, but we just did not have confirmation. So we couldn't go with it, because if we'd have been wrong, I mean, oh my gosh. But anyway, what I wanted to say is, Raina, talk about that.
Also, I think part of that, when we knew that it was going to happen and it was breaking, I was on the road and you and I were having a phone conversation about it and I couldn't type anything.
Yes, I for some reason it escapes me what the event was, but it was some ETSU suddenly canceled something at Freedom Hall, and I think it was a concert, I believe.
Yeah, I think
they just wouldn't have done that for any other reason that we could figure than the president.
Yeah. And we were all kind of talking, and it was like, I wonder if Trump's coming to town or something. Like, what would be big enough to kick them out of Freedom Hall? And sure enough.
But anyway, we jumped through the hoops, and Raina and Tyler Wicks, who many of you also know, were able to go and cover the rally for the East Tennessean. So just talk a little bit about that experience, Raina.
It was amazing in the weirdest way. I always feel weird telling people that was the best experience of my life, because we all know the fake news rhetoric. So being a journalist at a rally should not be the best thing that's ever happened to me, but it was so just cool. I'll keep it brief. You can read the editorial or if you want to know all of the details. But yeah, when we were there, I stayed with Tyler the whole time, because if anyone knows Tyler has a beard, which gives him authority. So Tyler and I just stuck together the whole time. And I think only 2 people kind of like spat the words fake news at us, which was pretty good. I was assaulted by a CBS cameraman because I was in his way to get a shot and he like physically pushed me. Yeah, it was just an overall cool experience to be there, feet away from Jim Acosta, who had a man up in the stands who like turned and was spanking his backside at him. I don't know what that meant, but it was cool to see. Yeah, and if you don't know, I got called fake news, which will be forever my talking point. Yeah, it was just an awesome experience to be able to be there and to know like what the gravity of that situation was.
And from a press standpoint, you had to be there several hours before and you couldn't move. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't remember the timeline exactly, but Tyler and I got there hours and hours and hours in advance. 3, 4 maybe, which I mean, that's a lot of time to be somewhere before an event. But we did that to make sure that we had parking, and we also wanted to be able to interview people. By the time we got there, Freedom Hall had a line backed up forever. Tyler and I definitely wouldn't have gotten a parking space even that early had we not been able to park with the media. But we kind of stayed outside for a little while, and then we had to go through a checkpoint to get all of our gear looked at and scanned briefly by the Secret Service. And I've never really thought about how weird that was, that I've been like checked by Secret Service. But yeah, then we got into Freedom Hall and we were immediately taken with our White House press pool badges to the media pit. And we got there and it was super chill for a while, just in the media pit. And then all of a sudden it was like 5 minutes until the gate closes, 5 minutes until the gate closes. And I looked at this, I guess he was from the White House. And I looked at them and I said, wait, does that mean we can't leave? And he said, no, 5 minutes and it's closed. You're not coming in or you're not coming out. And I said, well, there's still like a good hour and a half until this event. What if we need to charge something? What if we need to use the restroom and get water? And he was like, you're stuck. So there, me and Tyler like run in to get water and use the bathroom before this. It was just a weird experience. I don't know that was a good story to tell, but I haven't thought about it in a while. Also, fun fact, when you go to those things and you get a water bottle, I don't know why, but they take the cap off of the water bottle because they think that you'll throw that at the person speaking. Now, if I was going to throw something, I think it would be the full water bottle, but I'm not Secret Service.
So I don't mean to chime in. I actually had to interview somebody at Freedom Hall recently, and they brought that up, and I was like, why do they take off the capsules? Because whenever you throw it, all the water comes out, and so it's just an empty bottle at that point, or like a lot of the water comes out, and it's just a mass difference. So
I guess in theory that makes sense, but I still think I could throw a water bottle even with water streaming out of it with more precision than I could a lid.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thanks. I hadn't intended to ask about that, but I was glad I happened to think about it because I don't know. It's just, it's just one of those experiences. And anytime something like that comes up, sometimes, and this always irks me if I hear somebody say it, if I ever hear someone say, oh, that's just college journalists or something to that effect. No, it's journalists who just happen to be in college. And so you have the same right and the same access to, those already in the profession anyway. And you do equal or if not better job than those in the profession. And I know we're at time, but I'll just make a quick mention. It's no secret we've had lots of social justice issues, stories related to, the ETSU basketball coach, etc. I've heard from more than one person that the East Tennessean coverage paralleled and exceeded in many cases a lot of the local news outlets coverage, and so and that is just a segue for me to say that now that we're at the end of time, most of you on here probably know Raina, but for 2 years, she rose the East Tennessee into a very high bar, and Kate has kept that going, and it's just, I don't know, it's fantastic to see. And so I'll just oh my gosh, it's 8:01. We've gone a minute over. But Raina, thank you very much for taking the time to join us. And again, it feels like an old friend coming back and having a conversation with all of us. And so,
well, I just want to say too that as someone who's been reading Johnson City Press, WCYB, all of that, the East Tennessean has done an absolutely fantastic job the past year with covering all of those, like you said, social injustice issues. So bravo. Also, Dawn, if you're going to take a picture of this Zoom meeting, can we stage it so I'm not doing this?
Well, I usually take many so that I avoid photos like that, but we can stage one, sure.
We could have everybody turn their cameras on and then take a screenshot.
Or the people who feel comfortable with
Yeah, I'll
it.
say if you don't want
Everybody that feels okay, turning your screens on and saying cheese.
I've just been in that situation where I have one of these. So bin it if possible.
All right, are we ready?
Okay.
I'll count to 3, then I can't believe Jarrett didn't turn his camera on. It's very disappointing, Jarrett.
Right?
Hey, I don't have it plugged in. I'm sorry. sorry.
G in his own name.
I'm sorry. That's true. I blame ETSU.
All right, on 3. 1, 2, 3. And one more. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Raina. Really appreciate you joining us tonight. And everybody, thank you very much for being part of a record number of a crowd of Media Monday for the last one of the semesters. That's great. And again, all that means you'll get invited back next year. So, all right. Well, with that, I'm going to shut up and I'll see you all virtually later.
Bye, everybody.